All right, what's up, everybody? I'm really stoked to be here um, for this assignment for American government. Um, so, before I get into it, I'm just going to be briefly talking about the, well, you'll see, but the freedom of religion and the freedom of speech. Let's just get on to it with the first slide. Freedom of religion. In America, um, you know, we were founded with no particular religion in mind. I think most of the founding fathers, as we all know, were Christian, but some had other beliefs, and some had no beliefs at all, particularly religious beliefs. So we kind of have this basis that we you can come to our country and believe anything, as long as it fits within our legal rules and everything. So there has in the past, obviously with this, there's a lot of tension that has occurred because of this. It, it's somewhat vague. So obviously there's been some tension. I've listed some court cases that have occurred, and some span back all the way, as you can see, this Reynolds versus the United States, all the way back in 1879. But then, of course, there have been some other ones that have been more recent, like 2018. I even saw one that was as close as 2022. And that was just as far as my research went. So there could have been even earlier ones. The first case, and it is important to remember that the First Amendment protects the right to believe and the right to practice any kind of religion. The first case, Reynolds versus United States, that I've listed, 1879, it was the first major religious freedom case that occurred in the United States. So the first big one. It was George Reynolds, who was a Mormon, argued polygamy was a part of his faith, and the court ruled religious belief is protected, but not all actions are set precedent. So, like, his belief was in polygamy, to have multiple wives, but the U.S. Did not protect this right because it goes against um, their laws and our legal system. So there was some tension there between the Mormons and the United States government. And another one that I mentioned was the, I don't know how to pronounce this properly, but like Engel versus Vitel. Not sure how to pronounce that, so I apologize if I'm butchering that. But in New York schools, the students had recite they were reciting daily prayer, and the court ruled that the school sponsored prayer is unconstitutional. So it was a public school. The students were praying every day under the counseling, I guess you could say, of the teachers, of the authority, and the government ruled that this was unconstitutional, and that it violated the Establishment Clause. Um, there's a few other cases here. I'm gonna just skip over them for time. You can research them on your own if you like. But I did want to quickly mention Donald Trump and his executive order that happened recently, which I thought was quite notable for the topic. He created as of 2025, created the Religious Liberty Commission, directed by the Department of Education to protect uh, voluntary student prayer. Um, it does not reinstate mandatory prayers, but um, it reflects ongoing debate over religion in public schools. So he protected the right to pray in schools. It's not mandatory, but um, he protected that right, which um, it's not unconstitutional. Uh, I'm not gonna put my opinions out there because I'm trying to be unbiased, but just thought I would throw that out there. And then, as you can see in the bottom left, or excuse me, bottom right, there's a picture of Tom Cruise, famous actor. You might know him from Mission Impossible, uh, other famous movies. And he's a part of a religion called Scientology, actually based here in California. And, you know, they, like, even though, um, social, like, in the world, socially, this is considered a very weird religion. Some might even call it a cult because of the U.S. Constitution. They are not breaking any laws. It is perfectly legal for him to practice that. So let's move on to now the freedom of speech. So I've only put two cases here that I'll talk about. The first one, Brandenburg versus Ohio, 1969. A Ku Klux Klan member and a leader gave a racist speech. So the Ku Klux Klan, obviously a racially motivated supremacist group, and one of the leaders gave a speech that was deemed racist. The court ruled that the speech was protected unless it caused, quote, imminent lawless action. So even though it was hateful, it was a hate speech. It was against a minority. Uh, Even though socially it is considered quite inappropriate, the speech was in fact protected by the law and protected by the court. Um, it did set modern standards for limiting speech, but that would be a butterfly effect that came into play many years later. So the next one that I was going to talk about is the Chaplinsky versus New Hampshire in 1942. And that one, a man used insulting language towards an official, and court ruled fighting words are not protected. And so yeah, it was just provocative language towards an official higher up in, and the court ruled that it was likely to provoke immediate violence. I briefly wanted to talk about some of these pictures you see here. So obviously, the top the top right one, in the Vietnam War, it was going against the government, saying, "Hey, this war in Vietnam needs to stop. It's inappropriate." But alas, it just it was, even though the government probably didn't like that very much, it was protected by the Constitution. Black Lives Matter a few years ago, I'm sure we all remember that. It was freedom of speech, and then of course there's like I included South Park. Like they say a lot of things about the politics and Trump, and but even though it's very critical of the government sometimes, that show, it's protected. And then of course Kanye, who he says some pretty interesting things, but what he says, even though it's sometimes quite hateful, is protected. And then I added the political commentator Nick Fuentes. Also sometimes a bit questionable the things he says, but protected by the Constitution. So it's just these people who are saying things that can be considered radical, or quite socially inappropriate, by people of America. Constitutionally, they're not breaking rules. Constitutionally, they have the right to say that, as long as they're not breaking the law. Well, this video went way over my time, but all good. Thank you for listening. I'm Tucker Willis, and I hope that you enjoyed. Maybe you learned something, And yeah, God bless America.